Well, family, we're back again. And let me tell you, this topic here has been heavy on my mind. I just really didn't know how I wanted to address it because it's so layered, it's so complicated, and it is still happening. In my most humble opinion, this is still taking place. So today we're going to talk about the FBI, Ronald Reagan, and his COINTELPRO. You may have heard of this. You may have watched, what was that? Judas and the Black Messiah, or Black Messiah and Judas, whatever it was. You've heard the whisperings, right? The FBI killed MLK Jr. We've heard the talks, but this is going to be an episode where we really look into this because it's important, as I always say, to know where you've been so you understand where you are going. And with that being said, before I go and we jump into this episode, let me tell you, you better subscribe and you better share this with a friend. I'm done playing with y'all. Subscribe, share this with a friend, drop a comment, let me know what you think. Okay? Join the classic fam. That's all I'm gonna say. Join the classic fam. And with that being said, let's get into this episode.
Blackness, that black power, that black pushing them to identify with.
Now, the FBI would like you to believe that COINTELPRO was this counterintelligence program that they came up with to neutralize and get rid of all of, at the time, right? All of these nationalist groups, people who were committing murders, people who were committing crimes. And this took place from what they would like you to believe around 1956 to 1971. However, I don't believe that to be true. I think it is still taking place, and not in such obvious ways. But let's start at the beginning. So this came about, and now there were a bunch of different groups that the FBI was using COINTELPRO to go after. According to them, they used it to go after white supremacy groups like the KKK. They went after Black Panther groups. They went after Puerto Rican nationalist groups, right? They had a full list that they went after. However, I feel in my research, I feel it affected Black and brown groups just a little bit differently. Over here, we're going to focus on the Black groups. Now, to start out and to really understand what took place, we got to start with what the tactics were, okay? Because in order to fully understand what was taking place, you gotta understand the tactics that they used. So they used a lot of misinformation. They used a lot of distrust, dishonesty, planting information, right? They made sure that, they would turn people against each other. They would use harassment. The whole goal was to, in and of itself, make sure that there was never a Black Messiah. Now, if you go onto the FBI website and you look up the COINTELPRO files for Black extremists, Black nationalists, you will see they write this all out. It's not something that was like secretive. Maybe it was secretive to the public, but now that these files have been made public, and although they are, and I will tell y'all now, heavily redacted. I mean, if the I was almost gonna say his name and they would have YouTube would have been mad at me. But like that man's files, JE's files, okay, heavily redacted. But it's not that hard to read between the lines and fully understand what was taking place and what was happening. So we have a lot of distrust. They're trying to expose a lot of Black leaders. They're trying to persuade, just the regular Black population not to trust these people, not to follow these people. They definitely wanted to plant the seeds and to disrupt whatever was being built so that Black leaders, right? You had like Black Panther groups, they had the RAM group, you had all of these different Black nationalist groups. They didn't want anyone to follow behind them. So what did they do? They created a slew of different tactics, and really the main theme of them again is like the distrust, exposing, making sure that it looks like a dishonest group, making sure that people believe they were stealing money and all of these different things. Okay, so that is just a little bit of the basis for COINTELPRO and what they did. As the years went on and as they kind of caught their stride, it got ugly. It got ugly. Now, in order to fully understand how it got so ugly, we definitely have to take a look at what their tactics did and how their tactics became successful in the past to fully understand why I believe it's still happening in our present day. Now, y'all know when I got my notes, that means I did my research, okay? I really looked into this. I spent the past, what, 3 or so weeks really digging into this. So, like I said, the purpose of the counterintelligence program was to expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, or otherwise neutralize the Black nationalists. Now, in doing all of this research, even in reading Asada Shakur's autobiography, I kept seeing the word nationalist. And nationalist has a bad stigma for whatever reason. I'll leave you to determine why, right? But I said, you know what? Let me look up this word because it keeps being repeated as if it's a bad thing. So let me just look it up. So I looked it up, and a nationalist is an individual who advocates for their nation's autonomy, unity, and interest, often aiming to create or maintain a sovereign nation state. And that can be like your national identity, shared culture, national interest over global interests. Now, in reading it off the paper, it doesn't sound like a bad thing, right? Like if I'm proud to be Black and I'm proud of that and I want to build and advocate on that, I don't see why that would be a bad thing. The bad part about it is if you want to keep someone under you and someone being inferior of you and feeling low and beneath themselves, then you don't want them to have this nationalist mindset because that would mean they would want autonomy, unity, and they would want to be a community in and of themselves. You don't want that if you want them to feel less than and not be a human being. And what is it? Three-fourths of a man. You understand what I'm saying? So that to me made sense as to why, especially in this context of Black extremists, why being a nationalist was such a bad thing. Now, in reading these files, a lot of what they stated was that they wanted to cooperate with local law enforcement. They wanted to cooperate with any media publication that would basically get on board with what their program was, right? Whether it was a Negro publication, whether it was a white publication, radio, TV, didn't matter. If they could get on board with what the FBI wanted them to communicate out to the public, and then also state that, hey, you're going to communicate this message, but make sure it doesn't trace back to us giving you the message. So that was heavy in all of this, right? I also learned about the Revolutionary Action Movement, and I do believe this took place, if I'm not mistaken, in Philadelphia. And what they said, and one of the things that I realized and that kind of flagged for me was that they would basically harass people. When I say they, this is specific to law enforcement. Law enforcement developed this pattern. Now, let me pause right there just so I can fully explain this, right? What would happen is they would send out and set up FBI offices all over the country. Those FBI offices, and or if it wasn't big enough, those law enforcement offices would report back to the bureau, and they would say, hey, we have, the Nation of Islam here. We have a Black Panther Party. We have this other like nondescript, Black nationalist group. and they'll tell them like they have this many members. We don't think it's important for us to, deploy and get all this counterintelligence. Or they may say, hey, we have this revolutionary action movement, RAM, in Philadelphia, and we definitely think this is something that is worthy of us looking into. Here's what we want to do. So, in the beginning of this, what they had to do was the local law enforcement, local FBI, whatever, they had to submit to the Bureau their plan of attack to take out the Black nationalists in their city. So if they were in, I learned a lot about like in New Haven, Connecticut, if they were in Philadelphia, if they were in Mobile, Alabama, if they were in, South Carolina, wherever they were, if they were in Oakland, if they were in Chicago, child, wherever they were, they had to say, hey, here's the tactics that we want to do. Here's the things that we want to see happen so we can take out this chapter or this branch or this new organization and neutralize them, right? So in this particular instance, they said, we have this group happening, right? And what we want to do is we want to arrest this person on whatever, a traffic stop, whatever. We want to arrest them, right? So they wanted to arrest the man over and over and over again to the point that this person now, and didn't name it, of course, everything's redacted. They wanted to arrest this person to the point that, okay, you can bond out once, you can bond out twice, but every single time you go to get bond, it's going to get higher and higher and higher. And if we arrest you enough, you won't be able to afford the bond anymore. That was their goal. To me, that is harassment, and that is also things I believe still take place, right? But that was a tactic that was created under COINTELPRO. You understand what I'm saying? So they were like, okay, cool. We want to see y'all out of our cities, so we'll just keep harassing you. Oh, we didn't like how you stopped at that stop sign, arrested. We saw you, go through the yellow light, arrested. Like whatever they could arrest you for, they would, and then they would just keep raising the bell. To me, again, harassment. I think that is something that we see to this day. It was in black and white that that's what they wanted to do, and I do believe that we see that to this day. Another thing that was very interesting to me, like I said, they wanted to use any form of media. In a particular instance in these files, they went to a radio host in Rhode Island. I do believe it was I think it was Providence, Rhode Island. They went to this really large radio host, and they went to him and they were like, hey, here's the message we want you to share to your audience. We would even love if you like interviewed some people, and I don't think the interviews happened, but they did have this radio host share this message. And the reason why they went to that particular radio host is because his demographic was had a Negro population of 20,000, and they knew that that program would reach those of the Nation of Islam, right? So they were making sure that they furnished derogatory information, even if it was false. More than likely, as it would say in there, it was false information, but they wanted to have this radio host share it. Insane. And then also, as I said before, they wanted to make sure that the radio host understood you can't then make it connect back to the Bureau. Like this has to seem like some independent thing that you're just talking about, and it can't come back to us. So it's like, what? Like you are giving a radio host false information. It's derogatory information. And you're like, yeah, just go and talk about that on your show. Listen, just remember that, put a pin in it, because again, it's going to connect. It's going to connect. But they are using radio personalities to push misinformation to the people who are in that area or who are a part of that audience. Yeah, right. So another thing that I saw or that I found interesting is that they would use a lot of division, right? And a lot of distrust. So their biggest thing was let's plant okay, there was Stokely Carmichael, and then there's like other people. Every single time it was always redacted. I'm sorry, okay? It was always redacted, okay? So let's just say it was, Stokely and I think it was H. Rap Brown, right? Again, it's redacted, so I can't tell you who they were actually talking about. But their goal was to say, like, hey, let's get these people in the middle and let's get these media people, or let's get newspapers, or let's just do it ourselves to plant information to make it seem like these two guys have beef with each other, essentially. And now these two guys don't even realize all of this beef is fictitious. It's made up all by the Bureau. Okay. They're making all of this up in order to turn these two guys against each other, all with lies that they have fabricated and created and put out and disseminated into the ether. Now, these two guys need to seem like they're beefing with each other when it's all fake. Neither one has ever said anything about each other. All of that is planted. All of that is misinformation. All of that is coming from law enforcement and the FBI. Again, if you understand the tactics, you'll understand how relevant it is today. So that's something that we were looking at. Now, this part here, as I'm going through my notes with y'all, because to me, I don't know, I got hot up in the collar, like, excuse me? You know what I mean? Like, okay. So they laid out the goals of the counterintelligence. They just laid it out flat. And these are in their own words, okay? I'm not here to add words. I'm just reading off the paper, okay? I'm just reading off the paper. So, their first goal was to prevent the coalition of militant Black nationalist groups. This is what they say. In unity, there is strength, a truism that is no less valid for all its triteness. An effective coalition of Black nationalist groups might be the first step toward a real Mau Mau in America, the beginning of a true Black revolution. If you read it in their words, in unity, there is strength. In unity, there is strength. So they understand that if we unify, we're stronger together. If we unify, we're stronger together. So what we need to do, is we need to come in and break all that shit up. You shouldn't trust that person, and we'll tell you why you shouldn't trust them. It's all lies. That's a great man. They even point out, as I continue, this person will be a great leader for the Black people. This person would be great. They might not like this, but they'll love that. They understood. And because they understood, they said, we can't let that happen. Sorry, we can't let that happen. We can't have a true Black revolution. What? Let's continue. Their next goal, prevent the rise of a messiah who could unify and electrify the militant Black nationalist movement. It goes on to say, I promise you can just pull this up on the FBI website. Malcolm X might have been such a messiah. He is the martyr of the movement today. So Malcolm X had already been killed. Some would say by the same people, but hey, who am I? Martin Luther King, Stokely Carmichael, and Elijah Muhammad all aspire to this position. Elijah Muhammad is less of a threat because of his age. King could be a very real contender. And then they said Carmichael has a necessary charisma to be a real threat in this way. They knew who would have been the real Messiah. And their goal in every step of this was to get each and every one of them out of the way, because their biggest threat, they've said it twice now, is for Black people to unify, for us to unite, to be electrified, meaning we are buzzing and ready to go and filled with the energy. They couldn't have that. They wrote it in their words. Next up, they wanted to prevent the violence on part of Black nationalist groups. Now, I understood, right, that the Black Panthers walked around with guns and blah, 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 blah. But was that not our right by the Constitution? Was that not our right? So, A, whatever. Then they wanted to prevent militant Black nationalist groups and leaders from gaining respectability. You don't even want our people, the ones that we love, the groups, the you know what I'm saying? You don't want us to even respect them? Think about that. They want to prevent us from respecting the people that we should be respecting. We should be respecting the Black Panthers. We should be respecting Martin Luther King Jr. We should be respecting Malcolm X. Our leaders, they don't even want us to respect them. But it goes on further to then say, by discrediting them to three separate segments of the community. So they wanted to discredit the responsible Negro community. They wanted to discredit to the white community. And then I believe the last one is they wanted to discredit them amongst the youth. So it was like if we could get these three groups to not trust them, then we've effectively neutralized them. And that was their goal. Like, don't respect these people. They're not good people, even though just a page before you were telling us how charismatic Carmichael was and how great King was, and Malcolm X would have been the next Messiah. But on the next page, you're like, but don't respect them. Listen, y'all, it gets deep. And the final goal, again, was a long-range goal, was to have the youth not be a part of any of these Black militant nationalist organizations. Okay, fine. You know what I mean? Sure. Next up now, when we're looking at this, I thought this one was very interesting, right? So what they wanted to do was they wanted to create a paper, like a Negro paper, and this paper would then have cartoons, which all in through this, everything that they wanted to do as far as like literature was all very remedial, right? Like, oh, if we put out these drawings, if we did these cartoons, if we did these jingles, it was never like a book or it was never something where you had to read it. It was always very like remedial, like first grade, second grade, making it seem like Black people weren't smart enough to read something, right? Like you couldn't put out a proper like essay or expose. You had to do it in like a cartoon. It just was so offensive to me. But yeah, I was like, really? A cartoon? Like that's the way you think? But okay. So they wanted to do that, create this like cartoon paper that would basically, like I said, again, turn Black leaders against each other. And then they would disseminate it out into Negro communities. Another thing that they wanted to do is that they wanted to attack the funds of these organizations. And I laugh because if you watch Candace Owens, which I haven't really got into all the craziness that's going on over there, but if you watch Candace, and when she talks about how, she's at war with these people and like Ben Shapiro, and they're attacking her money, that is not a new thing. It says it in here. They're like, okay, let's talk to, like, let's go, like, let's say it's in Baltimore, right? Let's go to the tax office and see, are they paying their taxes? Let's go to the zoning place and see, do they have proper zoning? And like they they tried in every way possible to make things fall apart. When I mean that's literally what they did. That's literally what they did. I remember as I'm reading, there was a church in it was either in DC or Baltimore. And what they did is they went to the zoning board and they were like, hey, they have this school there. And the zoning board was like, okay. And they're like, well, you need to check it out because that's not right. And the zoning board went and was like, I mean, we don't see anything wrong, but we'll make them like fill out some paperwork. And they're like, well, if they don't have the paperwork back, then shut the school down. And it was like, you're trying to make people jump through all these hoops and make things illegal for no reason other than to not have Black people unify. Because what did it say? There is strength in unity. They'll just keep lying and finding ways to push us further and further apart from each other. It's as simple as that. Now, the next thing that I found to be quite hysterical as I was reading is that um, there was a guy, H. Rat Brown. He was, getting out of jail, and what they thought to do was to send him a letter. They did that, and then they also wanted to like create a jingle, like almost like a yeah, like a jingle that people would sing and like make popular. And the jingle really was meant to have you not trust him, and it would be, like kind of like a fun little thing to say, and get people to sing it so that in your conscious you're like, oh, this is funny, ha ha ha, but also wait, we really shouldn't be fucking with that guy, you know what I mean? And I don't know, I just thought it was interesting that they used music, because also we understood how important music was during this time period, right? When we're looking at the civil rights movement and we're looking at all of these different things that are happening in the country at this time, when we're in our like 1960s and things like that, music was very impactful. So for them to then be like, "Oh, well, let's create jingles." It's like, "Come on." Like I don't know who they got on their team, but somebody is studying us down. You understand what I'm saying? Like really studying who we are and what we do. Matter of fact, we'll get into that. I think right now too. You got to understand. You know what? Let's just cut to the chase. They have informants. Period. They have informants, right? And when you have informants that work for the federal government coming into the community, learning everything about the community, understanding our patterns, understanding our behaviors, and taking it back to the federal government, they can then use that against us, okay? They can take what they have been told from their informants and say, oh, okay, that's what they like. All right, cool, let's do this. They like music. Okay, let's give them a song. You get what I'm saying? They like to, get together and hang out. Okay, cool. Let's give them a place to hang out. Oh, they have all their kids going to the same school. Okay, cool. Let's get the school shut down. It's so crazy. And then you have these informants that come in. Not only are they working for the federal government, they're also coming in and they're spreading rumors. And that's when we get into Judas and the Black Messiah, right? Which was based on Fred Hampton, and a story that is very much true. You should look into it. They don't really touch on Fred Hampton, which is kind of funny, but I think because the story became so popular, it was like, why do we need to put it in here? Maybe it was. I didn't see anything about Fred in here. And I think that's just because we all knew it was them, So it was like, cat's out the bag now. But they did that. They used informants to go and get comfortable and get cozy with people. And then whatever information that they had, they took that and they ran with it, and they used them to create rumors, to get people to not trust each other, just to really, really break apart either the leaders or the followers of these groups, right? Whether it was the Ram, whether it was Black Panther, there was a bunch of groups, and they just used it, right? To say, hey, this person is this and that person is that. And it's really crazy because that's still something that happens to this day. And what they called them in these files, they called them ghetto informants. Mm, yeah. Another thing that I found to be absolutely hilarious is that there was a recent Negro organization. It was the United Americans for Better Understanding. This was a Black group. And what the Black group did, though, they wanted to cooperate with the Bureau. They're like, hey, we're not those type of Blacks. Mm-mm, sorry, we're a whole different type of black. We'll cooperate. We'll let you know what's going on with the other blacks. We'll push whatever narrative you want us to push because we're not those type of blacks. Yeah, exactly. You've definitely heard people like that. Groups like that. That's not something that is lost on us that, it just happened in 1968 and never happened again. No, 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 no. It is still happening today. And again, another thing, right? They have this adult coloring book, and this adult coloring book was supposed to reveal facts about, different leaders and different groups, right? But it says in here, factual data is not necessary. The only goal is the effect. They wanted to ridicule, they wanted to make sure that no one believed in these revolutionary groups, and however they could get it done is how they wanted to get it done. They even went as far as saying if the youth of the ghetto rejects black nationalism as ludicrous, then the neutralization of such attitudes and doctrines can be more readily be affected. So they're like, look, if we could get them to think that this is straight up bullshit, let's do it. However, we can get that done, however, we can get it done to make them realize that being a black nationalist is bullshit. Let's do that. We need a jingle. Let's do the jingle. We need a coloring book. Let's do the coloring book. We need some ghetto informants to go in there and spread lies and rumors. Let's do that. We need a radio host to get on a radio and to talk about how terrible it is and say all these derogatory things. Let's do that. And it does not have to be the truth. As long as it's loud enough, a lie will do. And that's what they did. So they had all types of things, harassment, the police department, all of these different things they use in order to neutralize, to discredit, to expose any black extremist, as they called it. I don't call them extremists. I think black power. Okay, baby, that's what it's all about. But in their eyes, if they could break up any unity, that's what they were going to do. And that's what they'll do, right? They'll deploy all of these tactics to make sure we're not unified. But now I feel as though we're in a modern COINTELPRO. And the first thing that I believe is impacting us greatly to the point that now I feel as though it runs on its own, like it's its own machine, the algorithm. That algorithm. Now, the thing about the algorithm, I did my research, I looked into algorithms, I read all of the articles and the informative pieces and the data. I looked at it all, and what I could conclude is that all of it is inconclusive. And it's all inconclusive because there's not enough information being shared. Now, one of the biggest groups, right, is Facebook or Meta, because Meta is WhatsApp, Meta is Facebook, Meta is Instagram. I believe Meta owns one more thing, but that's what Meta is, right? And then Meta's also developing its own kind of like AI. So Facebook isn't really reporting to me, and from what I did in the research, they're not reporting accurate data. And I believe that's because Facebook can kind of flip on a dime, right? We've seen that when Trump was trying to win and how they were handling all of that misinformation and fake news on Facebook, and how they said Facebook kind of their algorithms persuaded people to vote one way, yada yada yada. But how I believe it's used as COINTELPRO is that the loudest voices, the loudest stories, whatever they want the black community to see, it's what we see. So it leaves a lot of us feeling hopeless. It leaves a lot of us feeling helpless. It makes us believe that a lot of us are violent, are isolated. We live in negativity. We live in struggle. We live in this like loveless world. And to me, that's not totally true. Do I believe it's there? Yes. But that's across the board. But what I believe is that if they can continuously, when I say they, again, we're talking about the big, government in the sky, if you will, they will continuously pump things to us in order for us to believe that we are just stuck. We're stuck in this helpless sense. We're stuck with, black on black crime. We're stuck with, you know, gangs, and we're stuck with all of these negative things that I don't believe are true, but I think it's almost like a poison, right? It's this thing where you're continuously being told it's happening, so you start to believe it's true, and then we start to believe it's true. You start to live like it's true, and it's not. It's all a tactic. It's all misinformation, distrust, right? It's there to discredit anytime you might think something positive is going to happen. No, no, no. Here's some more bad news. No, no, no. Here's another, like, let's bring this other, police killing to your timeline. Let's make sure you see this person getting choked out. Let's make sure you see this person being shot to death. Oh, you thought that you were going to get some good news? No, silly rabbit. Here's some more negative things. Here's some more violence around your corner. And all of those things are highlighted, right? They're heightened. That's what the algorithm's going to pump. That's what's going to get the 2 and 3 and 6 and 8,000 likes, right? Nothing positive really is going to get the likes. We want to keep you in one frame of mind, because if you start to believe that you are better than this, you will unify. You will unite. You will be electrified. You might even find that there's one voice on the algorithm, and now we want to make this person a black messiah. Now, this person from Connecticut is connecting with that person in California, and now they're building a group, and now they're getting other people into the group. No, we can't have that. So we're going to work with Facebook, right? Because we need Instagram. And also, don't you know we just bought TikTok? And now that we bought TikTok, we can control that algorithm too. And guess what that algorithm is going to show you? You got it. All of the terrible things happening in the Black community, all of the story times, all of the baby mamas fighting baby daddies, all of the girls pouring drinks on each other, all of the girls, who are fighting, and the girls who, I think y'all get the picture, right? I think y'all understand what I'm saying, right? All of this shit is shit. Okay? It's quite literally just something that they do in order to keep us on this hamster wheel of negativity, of hopelessness, of never being able to do anything or be better. We just always feel less than. But now they can use the algorithm, and they can kind of keep their hands clean, right? They can kind of keep their hands clean if they want to. There's no way to really pinpoint and say, oh, that's when the algorithm changed, and that's when, they made the switch. They don't have to say anything. But believe you me, and I know it may even sound like a conspiracy, believe you me, they are using that algorithm to get you to believe things are 10 times worse than they actually are. And the more you believe it's 10 times worse, the more you'll behave like it's 10 times worse. Because if you see it online and then you happen to run across it in real life, then all of a sudden it will confirm the belief that whatever you see on the internet is reality. And we both know that's not true. You know how often you get online and it feels like every single time you go online, someone's running across a Karen, but then in your real life, you just never quite run across. You might run across someone who, like, get on your nerves a little bit, but they don't really like full Karen. And then you get on the internet and it's like every single time you scroll, somebody run past a Karen. Why is that? I don't know. I just know that the algorithms are designed to amplify whatever message they want to spread. That's it. Whatever message they want to get out to specific communities, that's what they're going to do. period. And there's no other way that you can try to convince me that that's not what happens. That's what happens. 1000%. That's what happens. They use this algorithm to control people, to control how you feel about your body, to control how you feel about your neighbors, to control how you feel about your friends. It's all a fucking game. It's all a fucking game. Literally. And I believe it's a little bit of modern COINTELPRO because it's really advanced, right? Like the same tactics that they realized that they were doing um on paper and like through, you know, talking to people, it's advanced with the times now because you use the algorithm. We don't we are like so far removed that we don't have to touch nothing. Not only are the tactics, I feel, already embedded in us, so we already, because we went through years of being turned against each other, not being able to trust each other. Mind you, all of it was done in order for us not to do it. It was all fabricated and lies and stuff like that. But now it's got to a point where we still don't trust each other. We still don't want one leader. That's where we get this crab in a barrel type of mentality. But again, that was something that was fucking produced and manufactured and fabricated and given to us based on this COINTELPRO, because again, in their own fucking words, they said they don't want us to unify. They don't want the youth to be involved in Black nationalists. They don't want to have a messiah. They don't want to have a Black revolution. They don't want these things. So yes, they want you to turn against your brother. Yes, they want sisters to be fighting each other. Yes, they want, you know, us to be at each other's necks. No, they don't want us to get along. No, they don't want us to hug each other and be a part of each other's lives. So yes, they're going to use the social media algorithm to amplify any negativity, to reinforce an idea that they created way back when. Like, come on, people, right? Like, you have to see that at this point. You have got to see that's what they're doing. They are like, to me, I feel as though there's people in my mind. Now, this is a full conspiracy. I feel like there are people who sit back and they laugh, and they laugh hard. I mean, they get a good hearty fucking laugh because it's like, damn, we did that shit back in 1968 and they're still up under that, right? Like, we have never broke free. I hope in me explaining this that some people will break free and understand that this was just some shit that they created back way back when, over 50 years ago. Like, at some point we'll wake up and be like, oh, they played with us then, they can't play with us today. You understand what I'm saying? Now, that can't happen today, right? Like, let's not have that continue to happen in present day. What I really want us to pay attention to are these ghetto informants, because the ghetto informants are still active, running rampant. Who's our ghetto informants of today? Name them. Exactly. We got DJ Academics. We got Vlad TV, Charleston Wright, Dr. Umar. Yeah. We have these ghetto informants who go into Black spaces and continue that same COINTELPRO tactic: expose, miscredit, discredit, cause division, distrust. Yeah, that's what they do. And the reason why I say Dr. Umar, because I know people are going to be ready to jump down my throat, but the reason why I say Dr. Umar is because I believe he is a caricature of what a real Black Messiah was. When we think Fred Hampton, when we think Malcolm X, when we think Martin Luther King Jr., when we think Stokely Carmichael, when we think of Huey P. Newton, when we think of these people, I never think of Dr. Umar. I don't even know if that man is a doctor. I don't think of Umar. Don't. I think he may have started out, right, with, and I think I said this before somewhere at some point. I think he started out with the right idea, with the right messaging, with the right words. But once he realized he could go viral for all that other clownery, he leaned into the clownery, and that's where he lost me. Because if you were a man and you felt so strongly about these things, you should have stood 10 toes on that. I don't know why you then decided that you had to do all the buffoonery and the clownery. That's really where you lost me at. Yeah, I hopped out right then and there. I did. Because I don't fully understand why we now have to do all this. And what it starts to give me shucking and jiving. Um, And I'm telling you, that virality, that social media, that algorithm is a hell of a drug, because once you realize that you can do a certain little shuck and a jive, and that gets you the virality, and that gets you the attention, and that gets you the money, then you kind of sell yourself out, and now you want to go and do that nonsense. Same thing with DJ Academics. DJ Academics started out, doing his thing. I don't even know if he was a DJ, so I'm gonna call him Academics. But then he went into like the, Chicago scene and really exploiting that, exposing that. And now that's what he does. That's where his bread and butter is. His bread and butter is to turn people, black people, against each other, right? Whether he wants to do it on purpose, intentionally, unintentionally, he might say, I'm just reporting it, but nah, bruh, that ain't what you want. Charleston White, another one. I understand where this man's coming from, but he's so federal, it's not even funny to me. I don't really want to spend too much time on him because he's so federal. Like, I can't. Vlad. Vlad. I mean, like, what else needs to be said? Besides, like, read just read what the COINTELPRO was about, and then look at who Vlad is. I'm not here for the culture vulture talk, because I don't give a fuck. That man, yeah. Yeah. That it like and I don't even want to say had they had somebody like that, because I'm sure they had so many people like that. That's definitely how we got Judas and the Black Messiah. They had people like Vlad, but had they really had somebody like Vlad, like a white man that black people was ready to ride for and defend like this, oh, they would have loved him in the 1960s down to the bureau. I know they love him today. Yeah, catch that. So they would have loved him down in the 1960s. A white man that y'all is running for and praising like this, to get y'all to get up there and self snitch. Could you imagine what they would feel like about him in the 1960s? What? You think Vlad get money now? Vlad would have made a killing in the 1960s, babe. He would have made a killing being a ghetto informant, coming right up into our shit to get us to do our own dirty work, while he sit there and just ask questions that we don't need to answer. I was really about to go into a tangent, but I'm gonna leave that alone. Just understand, them, Charleston, Vlad, Ack, Umar, is probably some more that y'all could name. Trap Lord Ross, all of them. Get the fuck. Please get the fuck. Now, when we look at this, right, we talk about the ghetto informants, blah, blah, blah. We have to ask ourselves, what are they talking about? What is their content? What is their messaging, right? What are they telling us? Are they telling us something positive? Are they telling us things that unite us? Are they telling us things that electrify us? No, they're telling us bullshit. They're telling us nonsense. They're telling us negative things that, again, keep us helpless, hopeless, negative, feeling like it's a struggle. All of these different things. That's what they do. And some may say Umar doesn't, but again, I already told you it's too much shucking and jiving for me. I'm not really down for that. So that's what they do. And that is, again, that modern COINTELPRO, that modern behaviors of coming in and causing distrust and division amongst the Black community. That's all it is. Then you got someone, like I said, like Fred Hampton and what he dealt with. And I think we see that again today, because I kind of relate it to, like, although I don't want to solely put this on Act, please bear with me. I'm not going to put this solely on Act. Y'all should already know where I'm going. Dirk made his own decision, right? He made his own decision to put shit in his name and to all these different things. But I think heavily a lot of the slide for Vaughn and all of that was perpetuated by Ack. Because Ack had been in this Chicago shit from the beginning, and now to see how far it had transpired, and I believe a lot of it was perpetuated because a lot of acts following, a lot of these people's following, especially Vlad and Ack and like Trap Lord Ross, they're white kids. They're people who aren't even a part of this community, or they're people who aren't even really a part of the street life, right? So they feel comfortable enough to take what someone else is saying, sitting in a basement, sitting in a house, and run to the internet and do that. And so I feel like it sucks for Dirk. And that's why my heart breaks, because I feel like he was a young kid really getting into his height, but he got tricked out of his position based on some shit that was perpetrated by people who really never gave a fuck about him. You understand what I'm saying? Yes, he made a bad decision and he has to live with that decision, but a lot of that was perpetuated by a Black man, and by people then taking that and going into this slide for Vaughn thing. And so now the pressure is built up again, and that's going to cause us to have this division, this distrust, this miscredit. And now we're again at each other. Because to me, we can have conversations, and it doesn't have to be about us being having get back and all these different things. But if we don't know no better and we're living under the modern COINTELPRO, then no, we shouldn't fuck with each other. We shouldn't look out for each other. We shouldn't pull somebody in and say, hey, I understand what took place, but that's probably not the best way to go about that. That's all I'm gonna say. Okay. Now, I believe in our culture, there are people in it with ulterior motives. And I think a lot of that is based on what they do, where they do it, what they say. And I think that, we can get a little lost in that, right? Because yes, this person is talking about current events, but how are they talking about current events? Right? What are they telling us in these current events? And that's the part that I like to look at. Another thing that I want to talk about as far as algorithm and understanding what is being amplified. There's a man by the name of Riza Islam, and Riza Islam has such a great message, and he's from that cloth of a Malcolm X. You understand what I'm saying? He's from that cloth of a Huey Newton. You understand what I'm saying? But he can't have no social media. Every single time he has a social media, a YouTube channel, whatever, his page gets banned. They lock him out. He can't create an account. Why is that? It's a few people like that. Riz is someone that I, have like literally seen it happening. Like I would follow him, the page would be gone. Then like a few months he'll do an interview and be like, yeah, I had an Instagram, but you know what I mean? So why is that? Why can his pages be banned? Whatever he's saying, his messages, they're not being pushed. They don't want us to see that. But then you got someone like Charleston White or a Dr. Umar or Vlad and whoever else he has on there, or Trapler Ross documenting every gang, war, and every rapper that's ever shot anyone. And why can all of that be amplified? But then a man who wants to talk about Black unity and wants to talk about religion and wants to talk about faith and being a Muslim and all of that, but his page, he can't have a social media platform. But these other ones can get millions of views to talk about rappers killing each other and who and who shot who. And you know what I mean? Who was tweeting at this person and who was live and talking about this person and that person shot. They could do that and get millions and millions and millions of views, millions of subscribers, millions of dollars. But Rizza Islam, he can't have his page. We're going to mute his stuff. I personally have seen when they have done a lot of what's the word? Like shadow banning and making sure and suppressing things, right? Why is that? We must ask ourselves, why is that? I mean, it's obvious to me, but who am I? Who am I? They are so quick to boost false narratives or to boost just a small drop of what's happening in the Black community, amplify that to 1,000, but all the good things they don't want us to know about. I don't know. It's weird to me. And lastly, one of my favorite things, music in the media. Now, there is no, like I said, there's no evidence to support this, but I do believe that with the COINTELPRO, they understand or they understood how powerful music was, right? You had Nina Simone, To Be Young, Gifted, and Black. That came out in August of 1969. And you had songs and movements and festivals and damn, you even had, I can't even think, let me do a quick Google search, but y'all remember we had Fight the Power, right? Like we had these things that was Public Enemy that came out in 1990. We had these songs to encourage us and to uplift us. And now I feel as though in this modern time, modern COINTELPRO, a tactic of theirs is the music like that does not get the push. Record labels are not pushing Rhapsody, but record labels will push Sexy Red. Record labels are not pushing Chica. They're not pushing Tierra Whack, but they will push Glorilla. Now, that's not, again, to pit the two against each other because there is a world, and especially in the Black community, where a Sexy Red and a Rhapsody exist. Right? There is no world where it's only one. But what we must understand is that under this COINTELPRO and under us understanding that they want us to see ourselves in just one way, right? They don't want us to see ourselves as that one person can be a messiah, that, you know, we can unify and all these different things. They don't want us to see that. They want us to see ourselves as less than. So we gotta continue to show you the same message. So record labels, they're gonna give Rhapsody a little bit of shine, but not too much. They're not gonna push Tierra Whack and her music, not too much. But we are gonna show you the girls who are gonna wear less clothing. The girls are gonna talk about their pussy. The girls that's gonna talk about fucking and sucking. That's what we're going to push to you because that's what you need to see in order to know who you are. We'll tell you. Big record execs, big record execs, but we'll tell you. Long gone are the days, are we fighting the power? Are we young, gifted, and Black? No. We niggas with Dracos. We niggas with switches. We niggas from the trenches. Fight the power? What? No, that's not what we pushing right now. And that to me is the modern COINTELPRO. Very much low vibrational. Very much low vibrational. Okay. And then lastly, on that, what I feel is the modern COINTELPRO is this obsession. And I'm just going to sit here for a brief second. This obsession with slave movies, babe, we've got to cut it out. Wrap it up. Okay. We have got to cut it out. Every single second they got us with another slave movie, and I am over it. I am over it. I don't want to see another slave movie because I don't see myself as a slave, babe. I understand my history. I understand where I come from, but every year I don't need another slave movie. Can we please produce something else? Can we please? So as I close out this episode, I really want to kind of just sit and discuss the overarching theme of this, right? In the beginning, I told you guys this was something that I sat with. This was something that had been on my mind and on my heart. But to be honest, the biggest thing was, can we have Black revolutionaries? Because I read the Asada Shakur autobiography, very, very inspiring. I think I read it in maybe 4 days. Like I just literally couldn't put it down. Like between working and things like that, I any second that I was not physically doing something, I was reading that book. It was incredible and it caused me to go down this whole rabbit hole of COINTELPRO and the way that they just treated her and the things that they did kept her locked up. They would say she robbed a bank, but then they would create, they would create fake lineups and have people testify on the stand that it was her, knowing it wasn't her. Like all of these different things that they did, and they just felt comfortable enough to do. It literally does something to you when you read it from this person's own words. And so that left me with trying to ask myself, can we have a Black revolutionary? And I don't know, I I would love to say yes, but I think we've gotten into a place where, and I don't even say we did this on our own. I think they forced us into a place over the years, over all of this distrust and discrediting each other and all of this division. Now we're at a place of individualism, right? There is no longer the collective, there's no longer the group, there's no longer a community. It's self and self first, right? We're not looking at us as a village. We're not looking at us as Black Panthers, as, fighting for the whole, Black community. No, this is all about me, right? And we put a lot of me first. And in that, I don't think we can then have a Black revolutionary, because if we wanted to have someone who was our Black Messiah, they could not be first, right? Everybody else would have to be first. And in order to have a Black Messiah, they would have to know that they're willing to die for people who may not even give a fuck about what they're doing, right? Who may not even care about the message that they're trying to spread, simply because they're stuck in their own individualism and understanding that I'm all about self. So I could give a fuck about you trying to unify us, you trying to bring us together, you trying to have us be, one band, one sound. They don't give a fuck about that. Even if you lose your life, right? Trying to save their life, they don't care. And I think with that, I don't think we'll have any Black revolutionary, And I think the biggest thing is, right, you have the threat of death, because yes, they're still going to kill you. Like, although we have not seen one in what feels like forever since, I would want to say, MLK, right? There is still that large threat of death, that if you start coming out here acting like a Malcolm X, acting like an MLK, acting like a Stokely Carmichael, there is still acting like a Sada Shakur, there is still that threat of death. They do not give a fuck. I really want to stress that they don't care, and they still will kill you, babe. Yeah. Very much so. Then there is the threat of prison. We've seen in the past that it was arrest, 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 arrest till you can't afford to get out. Now it's going to be arrest, 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 arrest till you have the longest rap sheet, and the only thing you can do is stay behind bars. That's the same thing they did to Asada. That's why she had to get the fuck up out of here. So, yeah. And then the other thing is this thing of irrelevancy, right? Where like you can do all of these things and still be feeling like irrelevant as compared to like doing the wrong thing, right? Where like when I think of this, I think again of Rizza Islam, where Rizza, he kind of has a irrelevant, right, existence compared to like a Dr. Umar or a Charleston White of that nature. You understand what I'm saying? So if you want to be viral and seen on social media and you want to be amplified, then you might go down that, coon type role. Simple as that. So because taking this is being a Black revolutionary is such a noble role, and a lot of people aren't up for that, again, because it's death. prison, being irrelevant. You won't go viral. You might not even have a social media. You know what I mean? So I think that is very, very relevant. And the last thing that I have here in my notes is, what is this asking of the Black community? To me, I think once we have an understanding and we can identify it, we can address it. After that, then it's one band, one sound. Like if you watch this and you still can't see the shit that they did, babe, you're lost. You know what I mean? You're so lost, it's not even funny because it's very obvious the shit that they're doing. I mean, it's so obvious. It's palpable. Like it's tangible. It's so obvious. They're not hiding it. They're not even hiding it to the white community no more. They don't give a fuck. Like, they do not care. So if you can't come out of this and say, "Oh wow, they did it then and they're doing it now." Now it's a little more hands off. They don't got to be as, you know what I mean? Like this counterintelligence program is running on itself, you know? I mean, they still have their ghetto informants because again, Vlad is very federal. I don't care what nobody say. That man very federal. Yeah, then we could get on one accord. Then we could be one band, one sound. And then we can start to fight back. Put up a fight. We got to stop fighting each other, and we got to fight. You know what I'm saying? This COINTELPRO that's been going on for over 50 years. It's not new. It evolves with the times. I will give you that. It does evolve with the times, but the tactics are not new. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning into another episode of Black and Classic Podcast. Please let me know what you think in the comments below. I don't know. This one really sat with me. I told y'all for about 3 weeks. I don't know. I felt it. I felt it in different pockets, right? But it wasn't until I started to read the files that it all connected. And I was like, oh, that's why that, and that's why that, and that's why I realized that. And it just all connected for me. And I was able to kind of put all my thoughts into paper and just sit down and talk to you guys about it because it's something that I'm very passionate about. I don't know if you could tell, but I'm really passionate about that. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And please do not forget. Exactly. Go ahead and subscribe, hit that like button, and tell a friend to join the classic family. I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.